Hello, future chemists of Sao Paulo, Brazil. My name is Jack Talbert, and I am sending a nice little video story of my experience with gasoline vaporization to you from Seattle, Washington. I like to open any conversation with a story, and it's a story of the Christmas ham. At Christmas time, when I was a small boy, my mother would cut the ends off of the ham, bake the ham, and serve the ham. Well, I liked the end of the ham. It looked like a heel from a loaf of bread, and I really enjoyed having the piece of the ham that was on the end. I asked my mother, "Why don't you, bake the ham with the ends on?" And she said, "You can't bake a ham with the ends on the ham. It's impossible. It cannot be done." And I asked, "Why is it impossible? It would seem to me you could bake a ham with the ends on it." She said, "No." I asked her who taught her how to bake a ham. She said, "My mother." And I went to my grandmother and asked her, "Grandmother, why can't we not bake the ends on the ham and then I can have baked ham ends?" She said, "You can't bake a ham with the ends on it." And I said, whoever told you that you cannot bake a ham with the ends on it?" She said, "My mother who taught me." I went to my still living at that time great-grandmother and I said, "Great-grandmother, why can we not bake a ham with the ends on it?" She said, I don't know. I think you probably could." I said, "Why is it that everybody tells me that you told them they can only bake a ham if the ends are cut off?" She thought about it for a minute and she said, "The very first Christmas where your grandmother was probably old enough to remember, your great-grandfather and we actually had enough money that we were able to buy a big Christmas ham. And I remember he brought the ham home and said, 'I would like you to bake this ham.' The ham was about that big. The pan was about this big. So I just took a little off each side and made it fit." Although the internal combustion engine has been around since 1680, the current incarnation that we use today is only a slightly updated version of the Otto engine that was designed by Nicholas Otto in 1876. Now, the gasoline that we use in the United States is a blend of octane and heptane. The octane portion is what we actually convert to a gaseous state with a gasoline vapor system. The ideal gasoline to use for vaporization to create gasoline steam is what is known as a fungible fuel source. That is the octane portion out of sweet crude oil with no totally dissolved solids or any additives in it. This is sometimes referred to as white gas. It's not the white gas that would be sold with a cooking stove, but it's just a gas that has no additives like would be transmitted through a pipeline from the refineries to the fuel depots. During the refining process, the sweet crude oil is heated in a vacuum furnace and the lighter petroleum distillates are drawn from the top, the octane, the heptane, the butane. And while the heavier distillates gravitate towards the bottom, your oils, your semi-solids, things that are used for asphalt, plastics, the lightest version of octane is referred to as high octane, and it's drawn from the crude oil as a gas, which is frozen and stabilized. The result of that process creates an octane wherein the hydrogen is on the outside of the molecule chain, where the energy is more rapidly accessible. For the purposes of internal combustion, this high octane with no additives or additional additives or stabilizers is the best candidate to use. If an individual or a team or a group or whoever was going to try and recreate gasoline vaporization, I would strongly encourage trying to get a hold of a fungible high-octane fuel. Moving into the 21st century, I believe it's time to move away from internal combustion engine, though, and start seriously investigating things like external combustion. Of course, steam engines are used in things like even nuclear power plants will use steam. Steam is still widely in use, and that's a form of an external combustion. It's just in the transportation industry, external combustion is not commonly used as it once was. With external combustion, any compatible fuel source can be used. It doesn't have to be, this complex dance of additives and time and temperature and heat and reactants. It's just a simple combustion process. It reduces the amount of fuel required to produce the heat used to get the work done, and you really only need to produce carbon dioxide with a simple combustion process. Right now, with internal combustion or even with gasoline vaporization, it has such a small period of time to actually get the job done. It has a tenth of a second or less for the air and fuel to mix, find homeostasis, ignite, produce the power. And there's just not enough time to completely burn all of the reactants. So carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and a litany of unwanted components that are dozens in length are ejected in that exhaust. Even with the best effort to try and make the exhaust as clean as it can, it will never be as clean as external combustion. And external combustion does not produce waste heat in the same way that an internal combustion engine does. All of the heat created by an external source can be utilized for the process of creating power. Internal combustion engines require additional cooling systems, exhaust components, and those are very expensive and complex. If they break down, the whole system is done. In an ideal world, the best combination of technology would be to use a powerful but compact external combustion engine like a quasi-turbine. There's one that's been designed by a man in Canada named Gilles Saint-Hilaire, and it can be arrayed to work with like an organic Rankine cycle. So I would strongly encourage anybody looking at gasoline vapor, use it as an external component and make the heat outside of the cylinder, or whatever, however you're going to trap it, do it so that the heat is generated externally. It has a longer time to burn. You can control the waste heat better. It makes more sense. And a vapor canister could be built that has a slow drip of any liquid fuel, and the fuel, once converted to steam, could be easily mixed with air and ignited. You could also use a combination of fuel sources. You could mix diesel fuel and gasoline, as long as the two wouldn't act together to chemically create something that's corrosive, like mixing heptane and acetone. So why would large industry like the automobile industry not immediately jump onto the technology like this? It would be incredibly expensive to convert or create on a large enough scale to be impactful. Consumers continue to buy whatever the current state of the art is because it's affordable. It's something that they can afford. It's something that is convenient for them to drive around. It's more convenient to use gasoline because of its energy density than electric cars, because the batteries are almost there, but they're not quite there yet. And when the battery technology is there, that's where we look at chemistry and at chemists. Get that better battery. But when the battery is there and the recharge rate, that's really where it's at with the electric car. Also, there's a price tag involved with it. But for today, 1 gallon of gasoline has more energy density than 1 gallon of about anything else a person can buy, commercially available. Convenient, carry it around, but it is a pollutant. And again, the best way I think to get rid of it as a pollutant is to just use less of it and burn it completely. Consumers continue to buy the state of the art. That does not incentivize industry to make that change. But young people have to make that change. People that are interested in wanting to have a better planet, a better environment, and a better future. And why would the current industry leaders be reluctant? Go ask your grandma about the ham. I'm Jack Talbert, and that's my 2 cents on my experience with gasoline vaporization. Thank you.